Chosen one, the universe doesn't speak in words. It moves in silence. And when it moves for the chosen, it shakes everything that dared to stand against them. Chosen one, you have felt the sting of mockery, the weight of disdain pressed against your spirit as they laughed and turned away. You wondered if their laughter meant surrender, if your silence was weakness. But tonight, hidden truths are exploding into light. You will learn how your quiet strength set in motion forces they could never imagine, how every cruel word they threw became the very arrows that pierced their own armor. Skeptics may scoff at these ideas, but your heart already knows this is real. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Remember, they laughed too soon, and the reckoning has only just begun. They laughed too soon, now they are the punchline. You felt the sting of their laughter echoing in your mind long after it faded from their lips. In the quiet moments, you can still hear the whispers, the smirks, the subtle jokes they made at your expense, as if your silence were a confession of weakness. You've wondered if your refusal to lash back meant you were powerless, that every unspoken word chipped away at your worth. But know this, chosen one, your silence was never surrender. It was the calm before the storm. They giggled in the halls, convinced you were hiding behind a facade of humility. They mistook your patience for fear and your grace for a lack of fire. Tonight, you will discover that their own arrogance became the instrument of their undoing, and their laughter, so eagerly unleashed, turned to the roar of their own downfall. Comment punchline if you see them now scrambling for cover. They savored the taste of your supposed defeat when you said nothing. They traded stories of your quiet responses, each retelling more exaggerated than the last, as though your dignity were a joke to be shared in hushed circles. You know the hours you spent replaying those moments in your head, wondering if you should have spoken up, if you should have defended yourself. You felt the jolt of betrayal when colleagues you trusted exchanged knowing glances, when friends you confided in smirked and walked away, leaving you to carry the echoes of their amusement. There were nights when you drifted into dreamless sleep, only to wake with a knot in your chest, convinced that your silence had reduced you to a punchline. Yet even in your deepest insecurities, a flicker of truth remained. You were not defeated. You were being prepared. At the precise moment they believed they had won, the tide shifted. In the often overlooked prophecy of Obadiah 1 verse 3, "The pride of your heart has deceived you, you who live in the clefts of the rock." We find a warning to every haughty critic who celebrates before the end. Their laughter, once sharp and cutting, became the very crack in their armor that the universe exploited. As your silence took root in sacred strategy, unseen forces began to align. Each harassing comment, each whispered insult was cataloged by cosmic law. They did not see the alignment of events that would soon turn their jokes into cries for mercy. In their blindness, they unwittingly triggered the acceleration of their own reckoning. Then the first signs of their reversal appeared, subtle but undeniable. A project they took credit for fell apart at the seams. An opportunity they flaunted slipped through their fingers when timing turned against them. Strange technical glitches crept into their presentations, sabotaging their carefully rehearsed speeches. Friends who once laughed at your hesitation now avoided their calls, as if an unseen force had cooled their fervor. You noticed your own path clearing. Doors you'd attempted to open for years swung wide. Invitations you never expected arrived in your inbox. The tables were turning, and it felt as though the universe itself had taken your side. The very laughter that had haunted you was now echoing back upon their own empty rooms, where no echo remained but the intimation of their defeat. Behind these outward shifts, unseen currents of divine law were at work. Your trials were never random tests of endurance but carefully orchestrated drills to strengthen your resolve and refine your character. In the lesser-known record of Judges 7 verse 22, Gideon's small army surrounded the camp of Midian and blew trumpets. The confusion they sowed routed their enemies without a conventional fight. Your silence has been that trumpet blast, sowing confusion in the camp of your mockers. Each moment you held your tongue, you called forth higher forces that bent circumstances in your favor. Synchronicities, unexpected messages, chance encounters, sudden clarity, converged around you, dismantling the very strongholds they had built through scorn and derision. Now you stand on the solid ground that their mockery once threatened to erase. But the greatest victory is not the collapse of those who laughed at you. It is the unshakable peace that courses through your spirit. You have seen how their pride deceived them, how every arrow of ridicule turned back upon their own hearts. Yet this moment calls for more than satisfaction. It demands a deeper awakening. Many are tempted to revel in the downfall of their detractors, to let bitterness take root in the wake of injustice. But true empowerment flows from forgiveness and grace, from understanding that their chaos is a mirror of the darkness they carried. This victory is your invitation to embody the higher path you have been chosen to walk. Feel the surge of purpose that hums beneath your skin now. This is your turning point, the moment you move beyond the pain of their laughter into the promise of your destiny. Release the need for petty revenge and embrace the grander plan that has been unfolding since your first brush with mockery. Speak the declaration that aligns you with the universe's design. I rise above their laughter and set my course by divine law alone. Let your next acts be guided by the strength you have forged in silence. Offer kindness to those who scorned you, share your wisdom with those still trapped by doubt, and stand boldly in the full light of your purpose. Each step you take will deepen your victory and extend your influence beyond any enemy's reach. Remember this moment as the moment you claimed your power without lowering yourself to their level. Their laughter was a spark that ignited forces beyond their comprehension, and now their own echoes dismantle them. You have emerged not only unbroken but more radiant, proof that divine alignment eclipses every human mockery. Comment triumphant if you walk free of their shadow and into the brilliance of your calling. They laughed too soon. Now they are the punchline, and your story is just beginning. Special thanks to our devoted members who stand vigilant with us. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join our private membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. They tried to break you but broke themselves. They watched you climb, bruising their egos as your confidence grew, and they could no longer bear the light you carried. In hushed meetings they plotted your downfall, whispering slander into eager ears as though a single lie could shatter your spirit. You could feel the sting of their words even before they reached your ears, as rumors spread like wildfire through corridors of power. You wondered how people you thought were allies suddenly turned cold, how projects that once seemed promising derailed at the last minute, and how the ground beneath your feet trembled with the footfalls of unseen enemies. You asked yourself if you were overreacting, if your perceptions were warped by fear. But what you experienced was no hallucination. It was a calculated assault meant to fracture your resolve and force you into retreat. Tonight, you will see how their efforts backfired, how every cruel act they conceived planted seeds of their own undoing, and how their hate became the crucible that forged your true victory. You are not alone in this revelation. You remember the moment they first struck, in private whispers after a meeting, in emails laced with deceitful undertones, in sudden cancellations of support you thought solid. You felt a twist of betrayal when someone you trusted smiled at your face while sharpening a knife for your back. The emotional toll was heavy. Sleepless nights wrestling with anxiety, mornings when dragging yourself to your desk felt impossible, afternoons blurred by tears you tried to hide behind forced smiles. You questioned your purpose, wondering if you were chasing illusions or if your calling was a burden too great to bear. Each time your heart sank, their laughter echoed louder in the recesses of your mind. You felt isolated, convinced that if you spoke up, no one would believe you, and if you stayed silent, the poison would spread unchecked. The struggle to find truth in the mire of deceit was exhausting, and it threatened to convince you that your mission was a folly you'd be wise to abandon. Then came the moment of clarity when you realized that these attacks were not random cruelty but a vital part of a divine script. In the often overlooked prophecy of Jeremiah 18 verse 11, God speaks through the potter to remind us, "Now therefore say to the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, Thus says the Lord, Behold, I am shaping disaster against you and devising a plan against you." Even as this verse warns of judgment, it reveals that mischief conceived against the faithful is an instrument in divine hands, turning the schemes of the wicked into the plot points of redemption. Just as the potter reshapes clay under pressure, Your spirit was being molded by every slanderous word and hidden trap. The universe was orchestrating a reversal, preparing to use their own misdeeds as the very mechanism of their collapse. Once you grasped the deeper meaning, you began to see the first signs of their undoing. Deals that appeared solid evaporated when backers discovered dishonesty at the core. Projects meticulously planned by your enemies imploded under minor scrutiny, as if a single light of truth burned away the shadows they relied on. You noticed how those who spread rumors found themselves distrusted. Their voices met with skepticism even when they tried to speak genuine counsel. Contracts fell through, investments dried up, and partnerships dissolved, all without direct intervention from you. It was as though an unseen hand was pulling the rug from under their feet, leaving them to grasp at emptiness. These shifts were not coincidences but the visible markers of a larger alignment. Divine timing in motion, turning their own weapons into the instruments of their defeat. Behind these surface changes, powerful forces were working on your behalf, far beyond what the eye could see. Your endurance under pressure signaled to higher realms that you were ready for elevation, and they responded by dismantling the snares set for you. In the lesser-known episode of 2 Chronicles 18 verse 31, when King Ahab positioned himself in battle expecting the prophet's curse to fall on his enemy, a stray arrow pierced him instead. It demonstrates how illusions of control can be shattered by a single misdirected blow. Likewise, every trap they laid for you, be it a character assassination, a financial misstep, or a relational betrayal, was repurposed by divine intelligence, redirecting their intended harm back to them. Synchronicities of justice emerged. Documents went missing at the worst moment for them. Timing failed them when fate demanded precision, and alliances fractured as the truth surfaced. Their downfall was not vengeance but recompense enacted by the same justice that guides the stars. At this turning point, you may sense the temptation to gloat at their misery, but true power lies in transcendence. Many mistake vindication for revenge and allow bitterness to seed itself in their hearts. Realize that embracing grace amplifies your victory far beyond any fleeting satisfaction of schadenfreude. This is your sacred moment of self-realization, when you decide not only to witness their collapse, but to embody the higher path you've been chosen to walk. Resist the urge to stoop to their level. Instead, stand tall in the knowledge that your silence was not weakness but wisdom, your restraint not fear but strength. This elevated perspective ensures that your ascent is not built on the ruins of envy but on the enduring bedrock of divine purpose. Feel that surge of empowerment flooding through you now. Release any lingering doubts that you must repay cruelty with cruelty. Speak aloud your commitment to rise above. I choose grace over vengeance, purpose over retaliation. Let your actions reflect this new resolve. Offer support to those once entangled by lies, extend compassion to souls still bound by envy, and use your influence to uplift rather than to harm. By doing so, you transform their weapons into plowshares, forging a legacy of restoration where destruction was once intended. Your response becomes the testament to your calling. You stand now at the convergence of their downfall and your rise. They tried to break you with their lies and schemes, yet each blow only sharpened your vision and strengthened your spirit. Their mischief, born of hatred, has become the catalyst for your triumph, a proof that divine law turns every assault into an opportunity for elevation. Let this truth anchor deep within you. They cannot diminish what the universe has ordained. Comment broke if you've watched their own hatred deliver them into the arms of their undoing. And know that your victory is only the beginning of a journey far greater than you ever imagined. And to every soul who's supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. They dug graves for you and fell into them. You wake to the memory of whispered conspiracies, snippets of conversation you caught in hallways, the sudden hush when you entered a room, and the knowing glances exchanged behind polite smiles. It stung more than any open attack because you realized these schemes were meant to bury you, to trap you in the darkness of other people's design. You have paced your floors at night, mind racing through worst-case scenarios, who had a grudge, who sought to derail your dreams, who was quietly digging spiritual trenches to confine your calling. In those moments, you felt the weight of isolation and the terror that comes when you realize powerful forces are moving against you. But know this, you are not alone in this sense of entrapment. Many have sensed the ratchets of conspiracy clicking around them, and tonight you will discover how their cunning, intended to bury you, became the very pits into which they fell. You remember the first trap, the promising opportunity that dissolved overnight, the contract that vanished when you least expected it, the surprise criticism that undermined your reputation. You felt rejection slice open your heart, wondering if you were misjudging the situation or if your trust had been too naive. There were days when you could hardly summon the strength to face your inbox, fearful of what new betrayal awaited. You questioned your worth and pondered whether your path was cursed. Each clandestine meeting you suspected and every sly rumor you confronted added layer upon layer of emotional exhaustion. The struggle to maintain clarity amidst the schemes felt like trying to navigate a maze with shifting walls. You longed for a sign that your faith wasn't misplaced and that justice would one day outpace deceit. Then, in a moment of hard-won clarity, you realized these betrayals were not random cruelties but wheels in a divine mechanism. In the lesser-cited prophecy of Ezekiel 13 verse 10, "They have healed the wound of my people lightly, saying, 'Peace, peace,' when there is no peace. God condemns those who patch over breaches instead of repairing them truly. Their own attempts to conceal and confine you were the same superficial fixes that ignored the deeper strength within you." This realization reframed your torment as preparation. Each scheme meant to contain you was in fact chiseling the vessel of your destiny. Their efforts to tear at your garment of purpose only exposed the unbreakable fabric beneath. What they intended as your downfall was becoming the very foundation of your rise. Once you understood this divine twist, you began to notice its first fruits. Projects they had sabotaged quietly resurrected with fresh energy. Contracts reappeared in new forms, allies you thought lost circled back with renewed loyalty, and doors flung open when you least expected it. Opportunities arrived on the heels of disaster, as if the universe had absorbed their malice and rerouted it into blessings for you. You caught yourself marveling at small synchronicities. A random message offering help just when you despaired, an unexpected windfall covering debts they thought they had increased by their sabotage, or a perfect solution dropping into your lap from an unlikely source. These were the breadcrumbs of divine timing, confirming that every trench they dug was but a detour to your true path. Behind these outward shifts, invisible hands labored on your behalf, dismantling the traps in ways unseen. Their clandestine meetings, designed to orchestrate your failure, were undone by slip-ups you never noticed. Misplaced documents, misheard instructions, unspoken assumptions that unraveled their plans. In the forgotten book of 2 Chronicles 20 verse 22, we learn that when the people of Judah praised God in battle, their enemies turned on each other and destroyed themselves. Your patience, your refusal to sink to their level, was your own act of praise, a refusal to pray for their downfall but instead to trust a higher justice. As you kept faith, their cunning collapsed from within, leaving them entangled in the very snares they had set for you. At this pivotal point, you may feel the desire to rejoice in their ruin, yet true empowerment springs from transcendence rather than schadenfreude. Many are tempted to stoop to the level of their enemies, believing victory demands vengeance. But you have seen how divine law repurposes malice into liberation without your involvement. Now you stand at a crossroads where you must choose not between retaliation and inaction, but between bitterness and grace. This is the sacred moment when you decide to embody the higher path, showing that your spirit cannot be dragged into the pits they dug. Your dignity, maintained in the face of betrayal, becomes the ultimate testament to the divine strength animating your journey. Feel the clarity solidifying within you now. Release the last whispers of desire for petty revenge and affirm your commitment to purpose. I will rise above every trench dug to trap me. Let your next steps be guided by acts of restoration. Reach out to those misled by falsehood with truth. Offer forgiveness to those ensnared in their own malice, and build alliances grounded in mutual respect rather than fear. These actions will cement your victory, turning the soil they once disturbed into fertile ground for new growth and collective healing. You stand now on ground they meant to unearth, solid and unshakable. Their plots to bury you have become the very conduits through which your destiny flows, powering a resurgence that no force can suppress. Remember that every pit they dug was a doorway to a higher realm, a tunnel to your elevation. They dug graves for you and fell into them, but you emerged renewed, a testament to the power that moves beneath the surface of all visible scheming. Comment risen if you see yourself standing triumphantly beyond their pits and ready to ascend to new heights. They called you crazy. Now watch, you were right. You've spent endless nights replaying their laughter in your mind, feeling the sting of every dismissive smirk and the cold weight of their doubts as they labeled you crazy. You remember the hollow ache in your chest when colleagues rolled their eyes at your warnings, the knot in your throat when friends whispered that your visions were mere fantasies, and the sense of betrayal when family members shook their heads as if you'd lost your grip on reality. In those moments, you questioned your own mind, wondering if your heart had led you astray. You felt profoundly alone, convinced that no one could understand the intensity of what you sensed bubbling beneath the surface. Yet in this solitude, a deeper truth pulsed, one that would soon shatter every preconception they held about you. You are not alone in this awakening, and tonight you will see how the very visions they scoffed at have come to pass with an uncanny precision that defies explanation. Think back to the first time you tried to share your insights and were met with condescension rather than curiosity. You might have described a sudden, vivid dream that forewarned a friend of danger, only to have them brush it off as a bad noodle bowl the night before. Or perhaps you cautioned a coworker about a pending crisis at work, only to see their face flush with irritation as they muttered about office gossip you couldn't possibly know. You felt the shock of betrayal when the crisis arrived exactly as you'd predicted, and there was no apology, only awkward silence and the echo of their disbelief. In those moments, confusion and frustration coalesced into self-doubt. If your gift was real, why was your truth treated as folly? If your heart was tuned to a higher frequency, why did the world insist on turning its volume down? Then came the shift in your understanding, when you recognized these painful encounters as part of a divine forging process. In the lesser-known passage of Amos 3 verse 7, we read, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets." This verse reveals that your warnings, even when dismissed, were never idle chatter but sacred messages carried on the wind for those willing to listen. Your so-called crazy visions were divine signals aligning you with a purpose far beyond the ordinary. Every scoff, every sneer, was a hammer blow shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying truth across the chasm of disbelief. Their rejection was the crucible in which your resolve was tested and proven. Now you begin to notice undeniable shifts that affirm the reality of your foresight. The policies you predicted roll out exactly as you described, down to the last detail. The market fluctuations you warned about materialize with uncanny timing, shaping the finances of those who dismissed your analysis. That weather event you foresaw arrives with the precision of a well-timed clock, leaving skeptics scrambling for explanations. Friends who once regarded your dreams as bedtime stories now approach you with wide eyes, seeking answers from the one they once derided. It feels as though invisible gears have clicked into place, aligning circumstance and intention with the momentum of your revelations. What once seemed impossible now feels predestined. Behind these visible changes, unseen forces have been working tirelessly to validate your voice. Your endurance under ridicule became the measure of your readiness, summoning help from realms you cannot directly perceive. In the quiet of your prayer or meditation, you might have felt a subtle nudge, a soft confirmation that your path was watched over. The small miracles, a forgotten email arriving at the perfect moment, a chance connection with someone who confirms your vision, serve as signposts of divine intervention. In Job 5 verse 12 we read, "He thwarts the plans of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success," a promise that those who tried to undermine your testimony would find their own schemes unraveling. Each act of faith you've taken has woven into the fabric of reality, turning your persistence into a catalyst for visible transformation. At this juncture, you realize that mere acknowledgement of these signs isn't enough. You must fully embrace the power stirring within you. Many resist this moment, fearful that stepping into their gift will demand sacrifices they're not prepared to make. You may worry that accepting your role as a harbinger of truth will isolate you further, exposing you to fresh waves of skepticism. True alignment calls for more than seeing the patterns. It demands a wholehearted surrender to the mission that has sought you out since before you can remember. This is your sacred crossroads, where you choose to embody your vision or retreat into the safety of self-doubt. The choice you make here will define not only your destiny, but the impact you have on everyone who will one day need the clarity you carry. Feel the surge of conviction that pulses through you now. Release the fear that has clung to your spirit and declare your readiness. I am the voice of truth, and I will no longer hide. Let your next steps mirror this declaration. Share your insight in a public forum, reach out to those who need warning, and document your visions with clarity and confidence. Seek out communities that honor prophetic gifts, and deepen your spiritual disciplines to reinforce your connection with the source of your revelations. Each tangible act of faith will solidify your authority and expand the reach of your message. You stand now on the threshold of undeniable vindication. They called you crazy, but tonight you witness the collapse of their disbelief as every vision you shared turns into reality. Their skepticism has become the backdrop against which your truth shines most brightly. Embrace this moment, for it heralds the full awakening of your purpose. Comment vindicated if you feel the justice of your foresight crystallizing before your eyes. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter where your voice leads the way. They stole your essence and it's poisoning them. You have felt their eyes on you, the heat of envy burning through polite conversation. You've sensed their admiration turn to covetous glare, felt the shift when someone tried to embody the very gifts that set you apart. Perhaps it was a coworker who began mimicking your ideas, or a friend who echoed your spiritual language as if it were a prize to claim. You may have noticed their sudden interest in your practices, your rituals, your meditations, your prophetic insights, as though they believed that by copying your form, they could possess your power. It stung worse than open hostility because it felt like a betrayal of something sacred. You wondered if your light could be stolen, if the words you spoke in faith could be siphoned off into someone else's hands. But know this, you are not alone in this wound, and what they attempted as theft has instead exposed the poison of envy coursing through their own veins. You've wrestled with confusion when imitation replaced authenticity in your circle. You confided in people only to see them adopt your phrases days later, parading your breakthroughs as their own. You felt a hollow ache when your creative spark was echoed by others but without the depth you brought. An empty shell of inspiration missing the soul that birthed it. There were moments of rejection when your original work struggled for recognition while their versions received applause. You questioned the fairness of it all, wondering if the universe had lost its sense of justice. Each borrowed idea felt like a fragment torn from your very essence, leaving you to question whether the uniqueness within you was truly yours to keep. The struggle to reclaim your light and to assert your authentic self has weighed heavily on your heart, leaving scars that whispered of spiritual betrayal. Then, in a flash of clarity, you realized there was a divine rhythm behind your turmoil. In the lesser-known verse of Zechariah 8 verse 16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak the truth to one another. Render in your gates judgments that are true and make for peace." We find a call to genuine expression and integrity. Their attempts to imitate you were not random acts of flattery but perversions of a sacred code woven into your spirit. God had embedded in you a unique signature that defied replication, a melody of essence that resisted all counterfeit melodies. When they tried to mimic your gifts, they were severing themselves from the source that animated you. Their theft was the very mechanism that revealed the divine uniqueness of your calling, transforming their envy into the mirror that reflected your inimitable light. You are the chosen one, and the universe is on your side. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members for keeping this fire burning. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. They laughed, they plotted, they fell. Now rise, chosen one, they cannot stop what is already yours.